All right, so I'm going to show you how to create an alpha you can sculpt with in this video. It's going to be pretty simple actually. So let's just delete this default queue, create mesh and plane here. I'm going to model this one, but you can certainly go about creating these however you want. Just keep in mind you're going to want to work in one direction only. So either up or down, because you can always mirror things, but you don't want to have them go in both directions, right? With that also said, we're going to be using an add-on called Grabdoc. So it's free, download it, link in the description. There's also one I'm going to be using called Sculpt Alphas Manager, which makes life so much easier when it comes to sculpting in Blender. All right, that in mind, let's finish this shape here. I'm just going to do a couple more loop cuts here. So all we're going to do is inset this. I'm going to drop it down like this. I'm going to apply a subdivision surface. So in object mode, hit Control-3, and that's going to add the modifier for subdivision surface there. We can see what's going on now here, and it's nothing too crazy, right? But I'm going to turn this off in edit mode so I can keep working on it. I'm going to grab all of this in here, so I'm going to hold Alt and Shift and select through there. You could use a cursor selector, or you could do any number of selection methods to get all this, like such as select more. This is under here, select more. All right, once I have all this selected, I'm going to press inset, so I to inset, and then O to do an outset. Control R, add a loop cut here, loop cut here. In this section, I'm going to inset this as well. So I got to hit O again to turn it back off and we have this going on, right? Cool. One little final touch. I want to add a loop cut right here. I think this makes it a little bit nicer and works out quite well. So all of this, we use cursor selector, hit C, and delete it. I don't need it. Okay. This is what we're left over with. You could tighten up the corners a little bit more if you wanted to. It depends on the shape you're going for. I think this is going to work just okay fine, but I might even want to, say, scale here a little bit and end up with something a little bit more rounded. Like that if I wanted, right? Shade it smooth, right-click Shade Smooth. That's an important step. Don't forget to do it. I'm going to bump up the levels here in the viewport, and I'm going to also set the render higher. All right. So that's what we got. Now, we're going to use the Grabdoc add-on. So I'm going to press N. You got to go to Edit Preferences, Add-ons, install the Grabdoc add-on. And but once you do, you can press N, bring out the side panel, go to Grabdoc, and we'll see here it says Setup Scene. I'm going to click Setup Scene, and it comes in as a plane like this. And this is the top here. That's what the arrow represents. All right. Now, the trick with this is that it's a square, okay? But when you're making alphas for Blender, when you're going to sculpt with them, I create a cylinder real quick and change the cap fill to nothing. Okay, I'm going to scale this down. Turn those wireframes back on so we see what's going on. And by the way, if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm using this as a hotkey to turn those on and off like that. And you have to set it up, so right click on it, set a hotkey for it. Nonetheless, Blender has an automatic kind of circle drawn around alphas, so you have to fit everything inside of this. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Just create a cylinder if you need a reference, but I'm going to go ahead and actually it looked like it fit just fine, right? So we can actually probably scale this one up. I'm just going to scale it real quick. Something like so. And I'm going to rotate this on Z. So I'm going to press RZ, type in 90, and there we go. All right. Go ahead and delete that cylinder. That was just for reference, just to show you. We do have a problem though. It's facing down right now. We need it poking up. So we have to create a negative of this, an invert. Or a mirrored one, right? So we're going to grab it, press Control M, hold down the middle mouse button, and you can pick directions to mirror things. In this case, it's Z, so we'll go up, and we have this result. But now all the normals are backwards, so we go into edit mode, select it all, press Alt N, and flip them, or we can try Control A and apply scale. Okay, and apply scale works as well. So you can do that either way. It doesn't really matter. So we have all this set up. Now, Grabdoc. Let's go to leave cam on exit. And we're going to turn all of these off except for height. Okay, so height preview here. We can expand this. We're probably going to touch some of the settings in here, but we click height preview. Click OK. It's going to show us this. All right, and this is the alpha we're going to end up generating. All right, it's pretty much just like a little drop down, like a little layer drop down. And that's fine. But if you wanted something a little bit different, you could always grab these right through here and maybe push them in a little bit like that or something. And what that'll end up doing is creating a little bit of an arch to it. Okay. There's other ways to go about modeling this kind of shape, but I just wanted to show you that because if we go height preview now, we'll have a slight gradient that goes out to gray there. So, all right, we'll press escape, get back out of that. All right, we need to define a folder we're going to export to. And this is an important step here. Create a texture library somewhere where you have all your images of grounds, textures, bricks, whatever you have. In my case, I have an alphas folder in it. Create an alphas folder and set up subfolders if you need them. In this case, we're going to do hard surfaces. And I don't even know what to name this, but we're going to put it in the hard surface folder. And I'm going to name this hard surface shape through hard surface shape 02. Or I think shape, I don't have anything in there except one. So we'll do hard surface shape 01. Anyways, we're using PNG format, 16-bit. I'm going to turn compression down. I don't think it's really required, but you can play with that if you want. And go through all of this. It happened to work correctly for this height preview. Like, it looks fine. I want to point something out. Sometimes it won't be. There's a little option here that says manual height mode. If you click that, you'll see it draws this little cube here. It's kind of hard to see. We'll go into orthographic by orbiting and hitting Alt. You'll see this little cube. It does that automatically, but sometimes it's off, so you have to adjust the 0 and 1 values here, like this, right? Just keep that in mind. I'm going to Control Z back, though, because it looked like it was fun. You don't want anything going down below on the Z-axis, so no negative Z-axis. So we defined a folder. We got it all set up. We can now click on Export here at the top. Okay. You can change the samples up if you want, 256, 512, or whatever the case is, whatever you want. All right. So we'll go to Edit Preferences real quick. Sculpt Alpha's Manager is free, just so you know. And when you set it up in your add-ons here, when you install it and all that fun stuff, define that alphas folder that you created so you can start storing all your stuff in there. What that's going to allow you to do now is if I create a cube and I take this cube into sculpt mode, right? I can press Shift R and define a resolution real quick. This is just a quick, dirty way of doing this. I can press Control R, and there's a lot of different ways to sculpt. But you can see I've increased your resolution here. So Shift R lets you increase or decrease resolution as much as you see fit, right? So you can always play with that. Hard surfaces usually like more polygons. I might have went too high there, but usually a lot. All right. We're going to use the draw tool here for this. And you'll see under textures, if you install that add-on right, you now have all your folders for your alphas if you listed them. In this case, hard surfaces. You'll see I have one already, but I've created this one. We're going to click the one we created. We're going to set it to area plane. We're going to go over to stroke, change it to anchored. There's different ways to set up alphas as well. I'll show you one other way to set it up. And we got edge to edge. Okay, that's good. Here we have fall off. The smoothing will be applied to your alpha. Just keep that in mind. You have to set it to constant if you're going to do these kind of hard surface shapes. If you're doing more organic shapes, you can use different fall offs. Right? And you can sculpt your alphas as well. So if you wanted to try that, you could. Okay, so with everything set up, we should be we should be good to go here. If I do this number, we'll see that shape comes back in just like so. Shape's going to be a little bit off for whatever reason. Blender likes to kind of make things when you're creating a height to it. If I press Shift F, it likes to bend them a little bit more than normal. As it pushes inwards, it creates like a kind of like a spherical shape on your alphas. Don't push it in as far; it doesn't happen as much. If you do like really heavy strength, you'll see it gets pretty extreme, right? It's just some kind of interpolation or something going on there. I don't know. But so less strength for sure. Helps a lot. You can see I accidentally went too far back. I reset it, so I gotta just reselect it again. Okay. Let's increase that resolution again a little bit. Accidentally bumped it down. I controlled Z back too much. Get back to where we were. Which was about 500,000, I think. 400,000 is fine. All right. Now we can select it again. There we go. Okay, so it's coming out right now. That's not probably what you want. You can hit Control and just push it in. Okay. So that's something you can do there. Might want to turn that strength down a little bit though. Get different kind of results out of it. All right, you can do this with other shapes as well. So you can see here, I have this little tapered kind of section like this. I hold Control, it does this. So really awesome. One thing I want to mention is these shapes, a lot of times for different kinds of designs, they usually have that taper to it. You can add a simple deform modifier, hit taper. Now you can work with X or Y here, so you can create different shapes like this without doing it destructively. All right, let's keep that in mind. Okay, much fun as all that is. Let's go ahead and set it up. Instead of using anchored, we're going to go back to spacing. We're going to change the spacing up to like 100, I think, for this one. Should be good. Go select this one again. We're going to do what's called rake, so it follows our brush. So if we did this right now, it does this number all over. So if you don't want it to rotate, that's fine, right? But if you want it to rotate, you can rake it, and it'll kind of follow you around. A lot of times when you do this as well, you have to change the angle 90 degrees. Get it kind of make sense again. You can see now we're working. That spacing's a little far, probably about 85% here. That's a little bit better. Maybe even a little less. Make it smaller. Pump the strength up a little bit. Okay. Fall off shapes has sphere, and then there's also projected, which I don't think is really that useful. Just keep that in mind. You touch that, it's not going to help you much. All right, so let's bump the resolution up a little bit more. Remesh it. So Shift R and Control R. All right, that's about as good as it's going to get for now. Turn that strength back down. All right. So all in all, you can now sculpt pretty quick stuff like that, but we're using spacing. You can set this to line as well. Make them smaller for this example, but you can do a line like this. So if you want something like that, there you go. All right. I'll try it with the other shape real quick. You see, same process. Except this one's slightly rotated, it looks like. For some reason, it's kind of weird. No, it's fine. Sometimes having an extreme angle can do things a little bit differently. You have all kinds of different ways you can set this up, right? You could do dots as well, which I find extremely useful, or drag dots, my bad. So you change the size here. You can do this number. Doesn't really rotate all that smooth though. All right, but definitely I find myself using anchored and spacing and line the most. That's about it. Let's check this out. Line it up the best you can by the site there or guesstimating or whatever. Now, do a stroke, space, adjust the size to what we want first. There we go. That's not too bad. Change that spacing down a little bit. Turn the size up, hit F. Spacing. Only downside of sculpting this way is it can be hard to place things sometimes. So having another one made that has just this shape on it 3 times over is quite useful. So you can create alphas in 2D programs as well. You can use Photoshop or whatever. Just remember to save them with the similar setting there, PNG 16-bit. And usually you want to blur them a little bit. You don't want anything to be super crisp or sharp because it will come in, it will look too sharp. I'll give you a quick example. General purpose. Here's a square. Very little blurring on it, right? And if I do that, let's use anchored real quick. You see it's very, very sharp, right? Any sharper, this wouldn't look good. That's a 25% blur, or a 25 pixel blur on a, I think they're 1024s. So, and then 100%, quite a bit different. 75 and a 50 pixel blur. But 0 would really, really hurt. You can also convert images into the little height maps in your 2D programs. Do things like that. So I can do fall off, smooth. Get some kind of high frequency texture going. Shade everything smooth here. Now we have this kind of a result, right? It's pretty cool. Something that's real fun to do, a lot of people don't realize, is you have this fill tool here. You can set up an alpha for it, do an area plane. We're going to use that sand. Turn the strength down a lot. Okay. Because this is usually meant to fill little holes and stuff, you can use that in certain areas like this. And most of that sand will show up inside of that area. So you can smooth it back out over here. Now you have that. And that's just something you can do. It'd be better, it'd probably be even better if you masked it. All right. So this wasn't supposed to be like a sculpting video, but we'll just Control Z back, break out the mask tool. Actually pull my pen out for this one. Turn the strength up. The masking tool. A lot of times I find the fall off is too smooth, so I'll do sharp. Could probably just mask in that area real quick, like. Now you can hit A You have a little mask menu. We can do an invert mask. Go back to the fill. We can just fill just that area. Right. Clear the mask. Now we get our end result. So we don't have to worry about accidentally creeping outside of those shapes. We can still add textures exactly where we need them. Now keep in mind, working with symmetry while sculpting, okay? Having these on, the X, Y's, and Z stuff. Using alphas, I found alphas break it quite a bit. Like it can't keep up on both sides of the model with that alpha. So with remesher, you can use the symmetrize negative X to positive X. If you have quad remesher, you can use negative X or whatever. Right? Use X, Y, and Z if you need to. But if you're using dynamic topology or just working on a subdivided mesh or a multi-resolution mesh, it's probably not going to keep up for you. And that's something I discovered when I did that little trim sheet sculpting video and all that. So just keep that in mind. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Check you out in the next one. All right. Take care.